So this video is going to be tough for me to make. You guys know that Hulk Hogan is my favorite wrestler of all time, but what you probably don't know is that Sabu is my second favorite wrestler of all time. And I know very different types of wrestlers, but to me, it made perfect sense. You know, when I was a little kid, the red and yellow Hulk Hogan in the WWF. As I became a teenager, the NWO Hulk Hogan. But as I got older, I kept seeing this Sabu guy, and I remember like when I would come up back up north after moving, down south, I would see these ECW commercials and stuff like that, and it was just like this crazy sort of world of wrestling that you never really knew about. And then you found out that he was in WWF for a little bit, he was in WCW for a little bit, and it was just like this mythical creature. Like you would see magazines in like 97, 98, and it would be like Hulk Hogan, Sting, HBK, Stone Cold, and Sabu on the cover. Like that's how big this dude was. And as I got older, I started picking up DVDs, and the internet started spurning on. He got a run in a WWE, attacking John Cena before a pay-per-view event where they had a match and stuff like that. You had the ECW one night stand stuff, and I was just like, this dude, like it's crazy the stuff that this man does that nobody else does. And if you are to do something that he does, it would be immediately considered biting. And I was like, this dude's the man. Then you discover like his older stuff, his independent circuit stuff from like the early 90s, doing stuff that nobody ever had done before, nobody had ever thought about. You could find stuff with him and like the 1-2-3 Kid, like classic matches, Cactus Jack, all sorts of crazy stuff. Suicidal, homicidal, death-defying maniac. And I mean, that's really who he was. And then I got a chance to meet him. He was working for TNA, and they were doing a house show thing. It was a UWF TNA house show. Hermie Sadler was the person that was like the money mark for it. And it was a bunch of, it was essentially just a bunch of TNA guys. And I remember Sabu was going to be there, and I was like, I told my buddy, I was like, bro, we're going to this. I was like, you drive, I'll buy us tickets, we're going to this. And we went to the show. I was dressed up as Sabu. I'll have a picture up. I was about 30 pounds heavier at this time, but I had a Sabu shirt on from his WWE run, and I had the little headdress that I used a sheet, and like I found some weird fabric thing that I used that, and I was so excited. And I remember I had an ECW replica belt, I had a figure, and I had a DVD. And I was like, I looked at my buddy because there was a meet and greet, and I was like, dude, you're gonna have to have him sign the DVD. I don't want to look like a complete mark. And he's like, okay. So we're going around, we're meeting everyone. We met a bunch of people that day: AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, R-Truth, Dustin Rhodes, he was a bit on the sauce, Scott Steiner, and then we got to Sabu. And so I'm going to I'm like, dude, can you sign this figure for me and the belt? And he was like, yeah, I have since sold the belt. I ended up selling it when I needed money, but I still have the figure. And I don't know how good the signature will pop because it was a Sharpie, but it still looks really good. So he signed the figure, and then we went to pose for the picture that you see here. And so I'm doing the pose, and like I am just so nervous. Like I'm so nervous, and he says something, and I couldn't really hear him. I was like, "What was that?" And then he says it again, and I still can't really hear him because he was kind of talking quietly. And I was like, "What was that?" And he was like, "Your arm is in my face." And I looked, and like my arm was in his face. I was like, "Oh shit!" So then I switched arms, and then my arm ended up being in my face for the picture. So it's a terrible picture. But I didn't care, man. And like the match, I remember the match was him and Sanjay Dutt versus the Naturals, and we were ringside. And it wasn't a big building or anything like that. And I was talking to him during the match because he grabbed a chair, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And he looked at me. He's like, "Shh, shh." Like it was just very funny. And he did a triple jump moonsault, which was amazing to see in person. And it was an awesome experience. And then when WWECW started up, they did a house show about 4 hours away from us. I told my buddy again, I was like, we're going. I was like, I'll get us ringside. You drive. We're good to go. And the main event of that was Sabu versus the Big Show and a tables match. And, you know, it was a standard match, but it was pretty fun. You know, Sabu took a choke slam through the table as the win. Paulie Heyman was there. Just a really awesome thing. And once again, I was all Sabu'd out. I remember Tess tried to fight me at the show. And then I just, you know, followed his career. And then as social media started to pick up, like, I actually had like the chance to like talk with him on things like Twitter. And it's funny because I posted the picture, like 13, 14, maybe 15 years later. I don't remember the dates exactly of when all these things occurred. I think it was back in 2006 when we took the picture. In the picture itself, you can see I say 2007. And I just posted it on Twitter and I tagged him in it. And I was like, yeah, this was a cool day. And then like he replied and he was like, oh yeah, dude, I remember that picture. You had your arm in your face. Like you didn't know what you were doing. Like, and like that just, this dude, this motherfucker wrestled on every continent for every promotion, literally every major promotion, even AEW. You know, he was involved. He did that little table spot during that one random match. Like, but somehow he remembered that. And then I've talked to him on Twitter before. We've had conversations and stuff like that, mostly on older Twitter accounts because he tended to put his foot in his mouth a little bit sometimes with some of the jokes that he would make. But yeah. Oh, I forgot to show you. I also have the DVD still. It's a shoot DVD. And my buddy it was so funny. He sounded like a little kid. He was like, will you sign my DVD, Sabu? And like, I still got that, you know. But I say all that to say, Sabu passed away. And it hurts, man. It hurts. You know, because there was nobody like him. There will never be another Sabu. Ever. The man ripped open his bicep during a match and super glued it and taped it. The man broke his jaw during a match and taped it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, he gave everything he had to wrestling, and wrestling didn't really give him anything back. You know? Like, that's a dude who should have had, you know, the $1 million house and the nice cars and all that sort of stuff, but he really didn't. He just had his last match a couple weeks ago at Joey Janela's spring break. I watched it. He got knocked out, like a big pool of blood on the ground from where, you know, a spot I don't think went exactly as intended. And it was funny because he actually just talked about it on a recent interview like a week ago. But I guess it just goes to show you, like, you never know. You never know when your time is up, when your number is called. And, you know, he had his ups and downs, personal ups and downs, his demons, you know, his addictions and stuff like that. You know, he lost his wife, girlfriend. I shouldn't say wife. I'm not sure if they were married, but you know, his girlfriend of a long time, a couple of years ago. And it's tough, man. You know, 60 years old, but nobody could ever say that, like, he didn't live for those 60 years. You know, he was a pioneer. He was a funny guy. He was very, maybe not the most politically correct person, but he had a good heart. I think he had a good heart. I'll miss you, Sabu. I'll miss seeing your matches. I'll miss seeing your funny tweets. And I hope you finally aren't in pain anymore. You know, I hope you finally have that peace that, you know, for whatever circumstances, whatever reasons, it seems like the world never wanted to give you. And I hope you get your flowers. And just watch some Sabu stuff. You can watch him from any company, and it's still mind-blowing what this man did. He was one of a kind. And it sucks that he's gone. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.